all of a sudden, like, they're just like, "Oh, you're a real person. What else can you tell me about you?" And, I kinda just I don't that doesn't come to me, like, through notes or, plotting. That really comes to me, like, as they're, sharing dialogue, and just the character becomes more real.
Hello. Welcome to Most Writers or Fans, the show where we look behind the scenes at how creatives build careers out of their passions, one decision at a time. I'm your host, Terry Bartley. Today I'm welcoming back a returning guest and fellow fantasy author, Ryan Gebhart. Ryan lives in Washington, D.C. and is the author of the Jewel of Life series, a sweeping multi-part young adult fantasy saga. By the time you're hearing this, the final installment, Shattered Light, will be out in the world, wrapping up the story he's been building for years. I first met Ryan at LavenderCon. I've really enjoyed following his journey as a writer, especially watching how he balances long-form storytelling with strong character-driven arcs. Today, we're driving into a topic a lot of writers wrestle with: how to plan a multi-book series without getting overwhelmed or lost in the weeds. Whether you're outlining your own epic or just curious how authors pull it off, I think you'll get a lot out of this conversation. So, Ryan, I really wanted to talk to you about this because I am editing my first novel in a planned series, and I'm planning out the series currently. So I'm hoping to get a bit of insight as well, and then maybe like provide things I've learned in the process while I'm at it. But how did you sort of approach this? Did you sort of have an idea for the full series when you started writing the first book, or did you sort of like as it went along figure it out?
It was definitely a little bit of both. So like the original concept was kind of there from the beginning. Like with this series, like there's always going to be 7 jewels that made up this jewel of life. And each book kind of like centered around finding the missing jewel and bringing them together. So from the very beginning, there was like this structure that really helped me, from book 1 all the way through the end. So that was definitely at least like figuring out how the books like were gonna flow together. Like I always had that from the beginning. But as far as the the plot and the character arcs, that was I feel like each book kind of developed it as it was being written. So it was sort of figured out at the beginning, but then, not really.
Yeah, I think it's such a hard decision to make because I think that as an author, I think on the one hand, you're like, I really want there to be an ongoing story that flows through the books. But then at the same time, it's like, but do I want to overthink it so much? I feel like that's kind of like where you're at when you're at the beginning of this, because it's like, do I want to try to plot out every major plot point at the beginning? That way I can like foreshadow things and you know what I mean? Like I can kind of like lead into the things that I want to build. But then it's like,
Yeah.
is that limiting me creatively? And I think that ultimately, I don't think you are limiting yourself creatively if you plan it out, because like you can always change your mind, like you don't have to stick to things that you decided earlier. But like, were there ideas you had like for the next book while writing the first book that you were like, oh, I'm going to definitely do this, and then maybe you didn't do it, or like how do you sort of like balance those things?
I would say like, as I was writing like each of these books, like, as I got like, to the ending and, it was like edited and like, ready. It's like the book that came after, like there was a clear trajectory it was going to be going along. So at least for me, like, when one book ended, they were always setting up the next book to come. So that definitely helped me. But as far as like having storylines and then just like kind of abandoning them because like, things change.
Yeah.
All the time. I have this huge bit of notes. And I can't like even like reference it anymore because like, oh, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. Didn't do that.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like I think about now, like there's so many things I know for sure about the world of the book I'm writing. And it's like they might not be true 5 years from now as I get deeper into it. Like, are there things that are there like babies that you've had to kill that you're like, I'm kind of sad that one's gone?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, so the thing with with the Jewel of Life series, like, it's just like this huge big fantasy world, and we're all fantasy nerds, so like we love it. But then I always get in trouble where I just like want to keep adding more.
Yeah.
So like book 4 came around and I just like, oh, we can have another race of dragons, and half dragon, half elves. It's like, sure, why not? This is the perfect time to add it as you're like halfway into the series. Oh, so it's like, okay, nope, tie it off, tie it off. I mean, that did make it in because it was a lot of fun. A 7-part series is a long series, but like, it still has to end. So it's like very hard to like put everything in it,
Yeah.
which I really wanted to, but I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah. So how much time did you put into sort of like the world building whenever you first got started?
Oh gosh. With this one, it was quite a significant amount of time. Yeah, I didn't like to have a lot of access to a computer at the time. So like a lot of it was just like hand notes, and just like pages on pages of like yellow note pages. Like I didn't like intend to write a story. Like I didn't intend to become an author. And then this idea just like started coming into my head for like this this Jewel of Life world. It was like, oh, okay, I'll just keep jotting it down and see where it goes. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So I would say it was probably at least a year of world building, and that was like coinciding with drawing the map and redrawing it and redrawing it. um, but I don't do that anymore. So like the newer series I've been working on, I the world building is still extensive, but I'm the world building is being developed as I'm writing. It's not as cut and dry. I'll spend this chunk of time before even writing, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready. I know what the world is. But nowadays, I tend to just, I feel more comfortable as with the world building aspect.
Since you're writing something new now, what
Mhm.
lessons learned do you feel like you're sort of bringing into that? Like, what sort of things have you learned through planning the previous series that you're trying to apply now?
Yeah. Well, the biggest lesson I've learned is refrain myself from making up too many words. I definitely got out of hand in the Jewel of Life. Like I names of days of the week, of months, honestly everything. And yeah, I definitely don't do that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of like I've come up with names of months and days of the week, and I've never once used them in the book,
Yeah.
but I have them like in case. But then the truth is, I'm probably not gonna use them because it's gonna be too confusing to readers. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah. It's just like, and then like you start talking about like, this random day of the week. It's like, oh, now I can describe what this day of the week is.
Yeah, and it is. I think it is such a hard balancing act to write fantasy and to try to world build within a fantasy world because like the truth is, they probably wouldn't have a day called Monday because of
Yep.
the reasons why we call it Monday are reasons they wouldn't have, right? Like
Yep. Yep.
it's named after something that they wouldn't have. But at the same time, is it like you part of you's like, well, they need to call it something else. But then it's like, but then do we need to explain that? But then the truth is, we don't explain what it means to each other. You know what I mean? Like I don't say, let's meet on Tuesday. And by Tuesday, I mean the day that was named after this this Roman saint that we've hung on to for
Exactly.
some reason.
Yep.
So this is a little bit off topic, but we'll try to
Yeah.
get back. So are you trying to query the new series? Is that your plan to try to do traditional?
I am. I am. Querying is hard. So we'll see how much air I have in me to query. But yeah, I am trying right now.
And so with that said, are you querying this book as a fantasy series, or are you planning to query
Yes.
it as a standalone series and then or a standalone book that might turn into a series? Like, how do you plan on pitching that to agents?
So the one book I was querying, I might end up self-publishing that one. Um, I queried like 100 agents and a couple requests, but no you know
No
like
commits, yeah.
acceptance. Yeah, exactly. So like it's like reaching that point where it's like, okay, well maybe this maybe you should do this one yourself. But the other one, and I pitched that as a trilogy. And then the one that I'm getting that I started querying recently, I wrote it as a standalone. And I was very proud of myself for writing a standalone. I got so excited. I was like, "Yay, I did it!" And then I got feedback from a beta reader. It's like, "Yeah, did you do X, Y, and Z because you're leading it to something else after this one?" Like, I tried.
Well, I think that's interesting because I think that a lot of people wonder like how do you approach like agents, especially when you're querying things like series because I think that like you never know what's a better sell. Like, do they want to have a lot of books? Do they want to have one book? And I really don't know the answer to that question. Not really.
Yeah.
I truly feel like getting an agent depends on if they are in the right mood when they read your work. I think that is
Yeah.
how
Oh,
you
yeah,
get an
totally.
agent.
Totally.
But I do think, and I think this is interesting to say, I think that it's sort of empowering to be somebody who self publishes because that means that you can, querying agents can feel a lot more like you're just mechanically sending a thing out as just part of your job. And then if it doesn't get picked up, that's fine because you still have a venue to publish it. Like talk a little bit about like that feeling of sort of whatever you accepted. Like this is probably isn't going to happen with an agent. That's fine. I'm going to probably publish it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to publish it myself. I'm very comfortable publishing self-publishing. So I'm not like it doesn't feel like a defeat to me. So it's like, oh, well, I really enjoyed self-publishing. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Um yeah, so like I'm excited to see like working with the cover artist again and like there's just like this excitement when like bringing a new book to life like it's been sitting in my computer and printed I don't know how many times, probably 4 years now, so it's you know it's ready to spread its wings.
Yeah. And I feel like it's sort of us taking our power back a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think that in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, when you're only planning to traditionally publish, which it's so wild to think of authors doing that this day and age, but I guess it exists still. Whenever you do that, you're sort of all of your self-worth is tied into whether or not this one random person decides that your thing is good enough to take a chance on.
Oh yeah.
And that's like not healthy or
Oh
good.
yeah. No. No. I'm so when my last book came out, book 6 of the Jewel of Life, I was actively querying another book, and I got so depressed. Like I could like barely like market my the book that just came out because like I just like felt like so sad inside from all these rejections. It's like so like for book 7, that the one that should be out by now. Like I'm just like, nope, we're not querying right now. We're just gonna put a pause on it. We're gonna be excited about finishing the Jewel of Life, and then we'll go back to querying after.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of like I think you sort of have to, once you become a self-publishing author, I think you sort of have to do this thing where you're like, I'm going to query this many agents, and just like pick a number or a time frame, like either one, and say I'm going to query for this long or whatever. And then if you don't get published, if you don't get picked up by then, that is fine. Then you can self-publish, and I think that that's probably a healthier mindset because then you're not so tied to like this has to be traditionally published,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Great advice.
Well, and I think the tricky thing is like you have to have a lot of projects going on at the same time, right? Like you have to be willing to be working on like multiple things because then you can have something that you're querying actively while you're also self-publishing something, which is what sounds like you're doing right now. So I guess let's sort of go back into sort of like novel planning a little bit. So talk a little bit about because something that I've been doing a ton as I've been editing my current book is like anytime something that feels like it could come up later, like if I put like a spell, like I put words for a spell in the book, I copy and paste that, put it into a separate document. So I'm like, if I ever need to do this again, this is the spell to do this. What was that process like for you? Like, do you have like tons of spreadsheets? Do you have like, whenever you're editing, do you then go back? Do you have editors that are just really good? Like, how have you sort of?
Yeah. So I don't have any spreadsheets. I've never even considered that. I might have to in the future. No, I'll have like a separate Word document, and I'll have like a working appendices. So like all the names, all the made up words, and I'm pretty good at like keeping track of it. So I haven't felt. I mean, with words that are actually real, I have that issue all the time. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like so Tyranny of the Fae, the book that I released, the first book I released, is technically a prequel to the book I'm working on now. And yeah, like my developmental editor now, I hired someone that I didn't know to do Tyranny of the Fae. And then somebody that I did know that I knew read Tyranny of the Fae, I approached for the novel. And I think I'm just going to stick with her because I realized that I really need an editor that actually knows the world and my continuity enough to be able to keep me on track, because like a normal editor wouldn't know those things and they wouldn't know what to catch.
No, I've been working with the same editor throughout the entire Jewel of Life series. Um, yeah, having an editor who knows what is going on in your head and like is familiar with the story. I mean, like for them, it's a job. Like we're paying them to like edit our books. Um, and to have like a new editor for every single book in the series is just
Yeah.
wild. Wa- for a fantasy series, absolutely wild.
Well, and I think as like a as because when you're a self-published author, you're not just an author, you're also like a business, as you're a small business owner, right? Because like your publishing company is your small business.
Right,
So you have to
right.
try to make business decisions. So then whenever it's like, do I want to get an editor who's maybe more established? Like that sounds appealing, but realistically, I don't think it's helpful because
Yeah.
you'd have to catch them up on so much
Hmm.
that it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I love working with one editor.
Well, and I think it's just a thing you don't think about until you're in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because I hired this other person, and I was like, I I just need somebody that I can because you probably have ran into this too. A number of like freelance editors will want to just send you notes and then just like be done
Hmm.
with it. That's the end of it. You don't have like conversations back and forth. And I feel like with this kind of thing, like I need those back and forth conversations because I need to be able to kind of like see that the thing that I had in my head made sense because that's not always clear on the notes. And I also need to know like, is there things that I could change that didn't work, or are these things I'm leading to working? And I think that that's so hard to do by yourself. And I think
Oh
that if you
yeah,
have just a freelance editor that doesn't actually have a conversation with you, impossible.
yeah. No, absolutely impossible. No. Yeah. Again, I could not have done this series without my editor. I actually dedicated the book to her. The last book to her. Like like it's no longer just like a working relationship. It's become like an actual friendship, and I don't know. I've learned so much from her. It's not been funny. And again, having that back and forth conversation with her, like it, like I I can't say how grateful I am for her. Yeah.
Yeah, and how did so this might be a thing people are curious about. How did you find your editor, and like how did that relationship start? Like how
Yeah.
did you
Oh,
approach it?
so funny. I so before I was going to take the self-publishing route, I was talking to another author who self-published. And she was saying well, first she was like encouraging me that I could self-publish if I wanted to. She was, letting tell me everything I had to do. And she asked if I had an editor. I was like, no. And then she's like, oh well, I worked with this one editor, for the earlier part of my books. I can reach out to her and see if she'd be willing to help out. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I emailed her as she was retiring. um, and she was like, okay, I was gonna be done, but I guess I could keep working. If you want this, it's like sure. So I don't know. I really lucked out. And yeah, incredibly grateful.
Yeah. So my story is similar. Like I'm working with another self-published author, which I think is also helpful to just have somebody that knows because what we do, if you don't do what we do, it's hard to explain it. And and like it's hard to understand the sheer scope of like the things that we do as self-published authors because like you do so much more. And
Mhm.
and I think it is so fulfilling to be so hands-on, but also like the thing that publishers tend to do is rein you in and keep your ideas more manageable and to make it make sense. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the other reason why hiring editors that you can trust are so important because we aren't going
Oh
to
yeah.
do that to
Yeah.
ourselves, right? Like we need someone else to do that for us.
Yes. Yes. Please rein us in.
Yeah, so I guess talk about like characters arcs because I feel like
Mhm.
that's a thing that's important in these long-term series is like did
Oh
how
yeah.
did you sort of like approach that? Did you have an idea of where you wanted your character to end up by the end of the book series or did you kind of like inch closer like each book you had a vision for each book instead of
Yeah. With the main character, I kind of knew where he was going the entire time. Yeah, his arc was very clear from the beginning. So his story was pretty easy for me to write. Um, but with some of the secondary characters who get POVs, I like for each character that got like a secondary that like got snuck into that little POV slot. I just wanted to know more about them. Like, the first character I introduced, like she's not the main character, but she is so influential in the entire series. And it's like every time it's like, I want to know more about you. Like, Valaria, who are you? Keep going. Um, but yeah, so yeah, for me, it's not so much knowing what their arc was going to be, but each book was really just like me trying to find out more about them.
Yeah. So you don't feel like a lot of your secondary characters do you have fully developed by the time you're including them in the book? Like you just sort of
No.
know who they are for that scene, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's rare exceptions. That some characters just like fully realize, as they come to the page. Um, but for the most part, it's a discovery for me.
I've had so many great guests this season, and one of my favorite is my good friend Ryan Gebhart. He wrote the Jewel of Life series for 7 books, and the most recent one, the last book of the series, just came out called Shattered Light. So please check that out. You can find out more about him at ryandgebhart.com. Talk to you soon. As somebody who tries to plan out quite a bit, I think this is just like a thing that I'm interested in like delving into. How do you sort of like, do you just sort of like imagine a person like for the scene and how that person would fit, and then like you then explore them like later? Like, how do you kind of like have that live in your head?
Well, I feel like they're always living in my head. um, yeah, but I guess like for me, like secondary characters before they like even enter the page, like I can like they're there and they're waiting. I don't really know who they are, but yeah, as I'm getting into the chapter or where they're going to be introduced, like they've been there. They've been like sitting on the sidelines, like, okay, we're ready. They're all of a sudden like they're just like, oh, you're a real person. What else can you tell me about you? And I kind of just I don't that doesn't come to me like through notes or plotting. That really comes to me like as they're sharing dialogue. And just the character becomes more real.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I mean, like I have main characters who I've like planned out pretty thoroughly, and then as I go to write, like I was writing a prequel story from this upcoming book for the Lost Short Story collection that you're in,
Oh
coming out
yeah.
pretty soon. And I was writing a book set in that world, and I was doing a prequel starring her father, and I realized as I was writing it that like none of the backstory that I had made up for her made sense, like in the world that I was building. So I had to like sort of like restructure her entire backstory. And I'm like sort of now incorporating bits and pieces of that as I'm editing the novel. And it's just a thing that because I feel like I have a very clear idea of who like even main characters are, but then I have to like then readjust them to fit in this world that I've built later. And I feel like this is something important to say just to other authors out there. Like having these kinds of like having to go back and rejig works based on things you've sort of like tried to make sense. It sounds hard to sound, and it also sounds like you're like destroying things you like the most or whatever. It's not like when you're doing this stuff, you're really doing it. You know what I mean? Like when you're actually having to like go in and make a novel and make a fantasy world work, like that's so fulfilling to do because I think that's what separates sort of like people who do it as a hobby versus people that are doing it as like trying to build a career. Because like you're trying to actually tell a story and you care if that story actually like doesn't have holes in it. Like it actually does make sense, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like the rejiggering like the editing process and making sure like, it is a good story. I love that part so much. Like for that same pre-Greek story, it didn't start off as a Greek story. Like I thought just like it's stereotypical fantasy genre. So like it's the first chapter start off with knights and sword fights, and then as the book kind of like defined itself, it was like, oh, so none of that happened. There are none of this here. Yeah, so that was a fun revelation that it was really fun to like go in and just like massage it to like make it more authentic to what it actually was.
Well, and also I think that's a thing that I think for like aspiring writers to know, like I have written so many things that are just sort of like for me. like I remember writing a prologue chapter to the book because like I love writing in first person, but I always have this thing as a reader where it's like, why is this in first person? What is this? Is this a journal?
Yeah.
Is this them telling a story? What is this? And I did a whole prologue that was like a flash forward that had them recounting the story to like
Mm.
children at a festival. And I'm never going to use it. It doesn't even make sense in the world, but I needed it just to get past like the mental barrier that I had to sort of like really delve into it deeper.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that you need to just let yourself do. And it's
Mhm.
also okay to do, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like spending time writing a thing that's never going to see the light of day is actually perfectly fine if it helps you make better stuff ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. No, completely agree. I've never gone about like having like a secret chapter for myself. I kind of love that. Um, but I have like that tendency that so many authors do where we just like love exposition and it's like, oh, too much. Um, so like for me, I just go way into detail on the world building. And it's like I'm at the point of my like editing career right now, and it's like I'll be going through. It's like, oh, they don't need to know that. They don't need to know that. They literally won't care about this.
Yeah.
So like several paragraphs. There's like, oh, you're a sentence now. I mean, I guess good. I don't know. I kind of cried when I had to get rid of it, but now it's just like, oh, gone.
Well, and I think what you learn though is like you need to let yourself do it because you needed to write it down for whatever reason. Like it helped
Exactly.
you move on to the next part of the story. And ultimately, like it may be a thing in the world that you need to know, but no one else needs to know, you know?
Yes.
And it's one of those things that I think is really hard to describe to people who do world building because, you know, like I'm doing so much world building that right now that may not ever be relevant to like the greater story. But
Yeah.
like I need to know how these different things work so that I can then build stuff around it. Because like
Yes.
oftentimes my stories are more about the characters than it is the world. But like the characters live in that world and you have to know like what are they interacting with. And it's so weird to be like I need to know like what is the church hierarchy structure because they're going to run into one of these people. Who are they meeting and why does it make sense and why are they meeting that level of higher of clergy? And it's one of those things that it's like I don't really need to know all of it, but I also sort of do because I don't want it to make sense. I don't want it to not make sense later when I have to include some other member of the church or something that I've not planned for yet, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, I need to know every little detail about the world I'm creating. Like, it does. It doesn't have to be known to everyone, but I need to write it. For the don't have a title for the series yet, but like the one that I was querying, I like started like writing just like pure like just not even short stories, but just kind of like like a history textbook, just like describing like what this event is or like who these people are, and it's just like paragraphs, pages of just things that I don't think I'll ever release, but it's I needed it to like know what it was.
Well, and I think the dream is to have a passionate fan base that they're going to want to know that stuff. So then you can release like a lore book later that's like really elaborate and they'll be like eating it up. Like that's the dream is to get to that place. Have you run into fans who had like questions for you, like readers who had questions for you that you maybe didn't know the answer to and you had to kind of like get into or?
Not too often. Not too often. The biggest questions that I need from readers is like, how do you pronounce this word?
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's what I want to do is to be able to release like this really dense. Because I've written those too. Like I have like full on like lore paragraphs. I don't like writing it. Like I don't want to write it in a book. I never would write it in a book
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like I'm writing it more just for me to have for reference later. But I would love it if I could release that stuff and there's people are like, I love this. This is so I love delving into this. That's what I'm hoping happens eventually, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I do that with like I do that with like Zelda or like Final Fantasy or like whatever. Like I love delving into the lore of worlds.
Oh,
And
yeah, so
I think
much.
that's the real dream is like for people to want to do that with your world, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I guess Ryan, we're getting near the end. Any tips for people that are building their worlds now, like based on things you've learned? What would you tell sort of like a new writer that sort of like has an idea for a first book and wants to make it a series, but they don't know what to do yet? What would you say to them?
One, I would say, just sketch out your map. Know where everything is. The map process for me, what is just like so influential in the story and the world. Like I'm a very visual person, so I need to see it. So if you're also a visual person, definitely get some paper and start sketching. It's a lot of fun. Um, but as for the actual setting, figuring out the story, I mean, like I'm a pantser, so like my advice is just write, see where it goes. Um, but like I already mentioned, like I started writing one book and the world completely changed on me, like completely different setting, and that was fine. I love that it changed. The book's much better now that it did. But yeah, I mean, even if like you're just like trying, trying to tackle the lore, just have like fun idea days, have paper like strewn all of your bedroom or office. And just like or try to organize it the best way you can. Again, I'm a visual person, so like like seeing the paper, organized. Like, oh, okay, here's where this class of information. Here's another stack of information, and meshing it all together.
Well, and I mean the idea, because you said you world built for like a year before you really started writing this series. Like
Yeah,
that's extensive world building, whether or not you even knew what you were doing at the time. And
yeah.
I'm sure that it really paid off in the long run to sort of help you know what you were doing.
It was very helpful to have everything defined.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, I'm a bit of a planner. Like, I have a bulletin board on the wall that has like all of like index cards for each book and like the characters that are going to be in each book. So I know how to like structure it. And and I think that what and for the record, advice I'm giving right now, I haven't even written the second book yet. So like grain of salt, all of this. But
Okay.
like the thing that I tried to do is I tried to think about like what am I trying to tell with the series? What is the story that I want to actually like the overall theme? Like what's the main message I want to sort of convey? And that's sort of the thing that I'm trying to sort of like uh figure out what pieces can build towards that greater story. And then the other thing I'm trying to do is sort of have like set pieces for each book. So like the second book, I'm gonna have like they're going on this adventure to do this thing. And the third book, there's gonna be like a wedding. Like I'm trying to like plan out those things. Like I want to kind of see the cover in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever I go to write, because I feel like that helps me kind of like figure out the tone, and then it helps me sort of like then thread that needle as I'm writing the earlier books to foreshadow, even if it's just the littlest bit. And then the thing that I will say, because like I said, Tearing the Fae I wrote before I wrote this novel, I ran into a moment that felt like a parallel to Tyranny of the Fae, and I wrote it before I didn't even realize the parallel whenever I wrote it. And so I went back and I copied like literal dialogue to like paste in to make it tie together because it's the same world. And I think that remembering that, like, it was that character's mom was the one who had the interaction in Tyranny of the Fae. So being able to kind of like bring those things together, I think are ways to make your universe feel more lived in, because it's not just like have you thought about that? Like, do you try to find things from previous books to bring into the next book, like as you go?
I feel like I did it more with book 7 with the last one. I feel like there's a lot of calling back to like earlier events and things that made these characters who they were.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense too, because you're trying
Yeah.
to cap it all off, right? You're trying to try
Yeah.
to let everybody know who these characters really are, and those foundations are important to kind of like demonstrate how far they've come, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thanks so much for joining me, Ryan. I hope this conversation is
Yeah.
helpful to anybody out there plotting out their own novels now. I'm so excited to see anybody out there who has books ready. Like, shoot messages to Ryan or I about things you're
Yes.
working on. I'm sure both of us would love to sort of nerd out about it. So
Oh, always.
so shoot those out. Where can people find more about you, Ryan, if they want to find your series or your social media or whatever?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. My handle's at Ryan Gebhart, so RYGEBHART. My website is ryandgebhart.com. And the books are available, your favorite bookseller. Yeah, you can just order them.
Yeah, I love that. So one last question I've been trying to ask everybody. What have you been a fan of lately? Like, what is the thing you've been reading or watching or
Ooh.
playing that you think other people should know about?
I was obsessed with Will of the Many by James Arlington. It came out, I think, probably towards the end of last year, I think, but obsessed. I think it's such a clean knit story. I was like, I was really shocked because it was like, it's a big book, but it was such like every page was necessary. Like nothing can be cut. I was very impressed.
Yeah. So the thing I'm going to say, what I've been a fan of lately, I've been watching this anime called The Alchemist Diaries. It has this really compelling character who's sort of a young girl that is like a really smart like alchemist person, and she
Okay.
investigates like different like murders and things each episode,
Oh,
which I really love. I feel like you might understand this. I don't love like the Law and Orders procedurals, but like the Murder She Wrote procedurals, I'm here for. So Alchemist Diaries feels a lot more Murder She Wrote to me, which I really
okay.
appreciate. Then it has a larger overarching plot that also carries throughout each season, which I also really love. So once again, thank you so much, Ryan. This was great. I hope to talk to
Yes.
you soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Hello, fellow creatives. If you're enjoying Most Writers Are Fans, please like, subscribe, follow on all the different things. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all those places is the best way to spread our show. Most Writers Are Fans is a Starlight King production. Special thanks to our guest, Ryan Gebhart. This episode was edited by Gabriel Gould. You can watch video episodes on YouTube and Spotify, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss a new conversation about the craft of storytelling. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the show. It really helps us reach more writers and readers like you. To leave a comment, send a message, or even record a voice message, visit mostwritersareFans.com or email us anytime at press@starlightkingpress.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, don't be afraid to tell your story.